1. The Berenstain Bears controversy. Growing up, I read those beloved children's books about a family of bears living in a treehouse. Here's the problem. I remember them being called the Berenstain Bears with an EIN. So do millions of others, teachers, librarians, parents, people who read these books hundreds of times, all share this exact memory. But when you check the actual books, both old and new copies, they've always been spelled Berenstain with an AIN. This isn't about a simple typo or misremembering. We're talking about a proper noun, a family name that appeared on every single cover. People have searched through childhood photos, old home videos, and library archives. Every piece of physical evidence shows Berenstain, yet the collective memory remains unshaken. Some skeptics argue it's just poor memory, but that doesn't explain why this specific spelling variation is shared by so many people across different countries, age groups, and backgrounds. What makes this particularly eerie is that the Berenstain family themselves have addressed this phenomenon multiple times, confirming it's always been spelled with an A. Yet the memories persist, vivid and unwavering, as if we're all remembering something from a different version of reality. 2. Nelson Mandela's death. This phenomenon literally gave the Mandela Effect its name, and for good reason. Thousands of people, including myself, distinctly remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. I can recall seeing news coverage of his funeral, his widow giving speeches in mourning, and the international sadness that followed. I remember classroom discussions about his death and its impact on the anti-apartheid movement. But here's the unsettling truth. Nelson Mandela didn't die in prison. He was released in 1990, became South Africa's president, and passed away in 2013 at age 95. When researcher Fiona Broom first documented this phenomenon in 2009, she was flooded with responses from people sharing identical memories, the same timeline, the same funeral images, even specific details about the circumstances of his prison death. These weren't vague recollections. They were detailed, consistent memories shared by people who had never communicated with each other. Some remember textbooks mentioning his death. Others recall memorial services at their schools. The memories are so vivid that many people initially refused to believe Mandela was still alive when confronted with the facts. This wasn't just confusion about dates or mixing up similar events. This was a shared false memory of a major historical figure's death, complete with emotional responses and cultural impact that never actually occurred in our current timeline. 3. The Monopoly Man's missing monocle. Let me ask you something. Does the Monopoly Man wear a monocle? Close your eyes and visualize him. I'll wait. If you pictured rich Uncle Pennybags with a monocle over one eye, you're not alone. Millions of people share this exact memory. He's the epitome of a wealthy aristocrat, complete with a top hat, mustache, and that distinctive monocle. Except he's never worn one, not in any official Monopoly game, advertisement, or merchandise throughout the game's entire history since 1935. Go ahead and check your game at home. The monocle isn't there. This anomaly is particularly fascinating because people don't just vaguely think he might have worn one. They have specific memories of which eye it was on. Some remember using the monocle as a key identifying feature to find the right game piece. Others recall drawing him in school with the monocle prominently featured. The prevailing theory is that people are confusing him with Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot who does wear a monocle. But that explanation falls flat when you consider how many people have never seen or don't remember Mr. Peanut, yet still clearly visualize the Monopoly Man with his monocle. It's as if our collective memory pulled from a version of the game that doesn't exist in our current reality. 4. Looney Tunes versus Looney Tunes. Saturday mornings were sacred in my household. I'd wake up early, pour a bowl of cereal, and settle in for hours of cartoons. My favorite, Looney Tunes. Or at least, that's what I remember them being called. The spelling made perfect sense. These were cartoons, or toons for short. That's how animated characters were colloquially referred to. But apparently I've been wrong my entire life. The official name has always been Looney Tunes, spelled Tunes, always. Every vintage poster, every copyright document, every original cell from the Warner Brothers archives confirms this. Yet millions of people remember Toons with complete certainty. This isn't just about mishearing or misreading a title. We're talking about a franchise that dominated pop culture for decades, with its name appearing on merchandise, TV guides, and video cassettes that we owned and looked at repeatedly. Some people even remember both spellings existing simultaneously. Looney Tunes for the original theatrical shorts and Looney Tunes for the television series. But no such distinction ever existed. What's particularly striking is how this memory persists even after people learn the correct spelling. The cognitive dissonance is real. Your brain knows it's tunes, but something deep inside still insists it was tunes. 5. Life was like a box of chocolates. Forrest Gump gave us one of cinema's most quotable lines, right? Life is like a box of chocolates. I've heard people recite it thousands of times. It's been on motivational posters, graduation speeches, and countless social media posts. There's just one problem. Forrest never said those exact words. If you go back and watch the 1994 film right now, you'll hear Tom Hanks say, "Life was like a box of chocolates." Past tense. Was, not is. This isn't a trivial difference. The verb tense completely changes the meaning and feel of the quote. Is suggests an ongoing, universal truth. Was frames it as something Forrest's mother used to say. A memory from his past. When this anomaly first circulated online, I didn't believe it. I was certain I'd heard is a million times. So I watched the scene myself, and there it was. Was, clear as day. What's more unsettling is that even professional publications, authorized merchandise, and official movie posters have used is in the quote. Either everyone involved in marketing this film misremembered the line, or something changed. The memory is so persistent that people still quote it wrong today, even after being corrected multiple times. It's as if our collective consciousness is holding on to a version of the quote that exists outside our current timeline. 6. The fruit of the loom cornucopia. This one hit me hard. I have a crystal clear memory of the Fruit of the Loom logo featuring an assortment of fruit spilling out of a brown cornucopia. It made sense. Fruit of the Loom suggested abundance, harvest, Thanksgiving imagery. I remember staring at that cornucopia on underwear packaging while sitting in department stores as a kid. I can describe the way the horn curved, the texture of the woven basket, the way the grapes draped over its edge. But here's the reality check. There has never been a cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo. Never. The company has confirmed this repeatedly. Designers, brand historians, and trademark archives all show the same thing. Just fruit, no cornucopia, throughout the brand's entire 170-year history. Yet thousands upon thousands of people share this identical false memory. They don't vaguely think there might have been a cornucopia. They remember specific details about it. Some people learned what a cornucopia was precisely because of this logo. Teachers have reported students pointing to the Fruit of the Loom logo when discussing Thanksgiving symbols. Former employees of the company have come forward swearing they remember the cornucopia. This isn't explainable by simple confusion or similar logos. The memory is too specific, too detailed, and too widespread. It's as if we're all remembering merchandise from an alternate version of the brand. 7. Jiffy Peanut Butter. When I was young, my mom sent me to the store with a simple request. Grab a jar of Jiffy peanut butter. I knew exactly what to look for because we always bought Jiffy. That simple, memorable name, single syllable, easy to spell, perfect for a kid to remember. Except, Jiffy peanut butter doesn't exist and never has. The brand is called Jif, not Jiffy. There's no extra syllable, no Y at the end. Just 3 letters, J-I-F. This revelation stunned me because my memory is adamant. I can visualize the Jiffy label, the way the letters looked, the placement of the logo on the jar. Thousands of others report the same experience. They remember asking their parents for Jiffy sandwiches, writing Jiffy on grocery lists, and specifically choosing Jiffy over competitors like Skippy or Peter Pan. Some people even claim to remember both Jif and Jiffy existing simultaneously as different brands. The confusion can't be attributed to mixing it up with Jiffy cornbread mix, because many people who experience this phenomenon have never used or seen that product. What makes this particularly bizarre is that the Jif brand has been around since 1958 and has remained relatively consistent in its branding. Yet this widespread false memory persists across multiple generations. It's as if an entire product line was erased from existence, leaving only our memories behind. 8. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs contains one of the most iconic lines in animation history. The evil queen stands before her magic mirror and asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" Except she doesn't. In the actual 1937 film, the line is "Magic mirror on the wall," not "Mirror, mirror," never has been. This discovery sent me spiraling because I've heard mirror, mirror repeated in countless parodies, references, and Halloween costumes throughout my entire life. It's the default phrase everyone uses when referencing this scene. School plays, comedy sketches, children's books, all use mirror, mirror. How could the entire entertainment industry get this wrong? When you watch the original scene, the queen clearly says, "magic mirror," and she only says it that way. There's no alternate version, no different cut of the film with different dialogue. Yet the mirror, mirror memory is universal. People who've watched this movie dozens of times insist they heard mirror, mirror. Voice actors, Disney historians, and animation enthusiasts all share this false memory. Even official Disney merchandise and theme park attractions have used mirror, mirror in their marketing. The phrase has become so ingrained in pop culture that it's essentially replaced the actual line. Whether this is collective false memory or evidence of a shifted timeline, one thing's certain: millions of people remember a version of this scene that doesn't match the film we have today. 9. Luke, I am your father. Star Wars gave us one of cinema's most shocking plot twists, and everyone knows the line, right? Luke, I am your father. We've all heard it quoted a million times. It's on t-shirts, it's in parodies, it's how everyone references that scene. But Darth Vader never says, "Luke, I am your father." Not once. The actual line from The Empire Strikes Back is, "No, I am your father," in response to Luke saying, "You killed my father." There's no Luke at the beginning of the sentence. Go watch the film right now. You'll see. This hits differently than other misquotes because it fundamentally changes the structure of the line. Adding Luke creates a statement, a declaration. The actual line, "No, I am your father," is a rebuttal, a correction to Luke's accusation. The entire rhythm and dramatic weight shift. When I learned this, I rewatched the scene multiple times. My brain couldn't process it. I'd heard, "Luke, I am your father," my entire life, even from people who'd seen the movie dozens of times. What's particularly fascinating is how this misquote has achieved such complete cultural saturation that it's effectively replaced the real line. Even official Star Wars merchandise has occasionally featured the incorrect version. People who work in film, who study dialogue, who pride themselves on their Star Wars knowledge, all share this false memory. Something about this line refuses to stay in its original form. 10. The Thinker's Pose. Auguste Rodin's famous sculpture, The Thinker, is one of the most recognizable pieces of art in the world. When you visualize it right now, what do you see? Most people envision the figure with his fist pressed against his forehead in deep contemplation. That's certainly what I remember. The closed fist, the knuckles against the forehead, the embodiment of intense intellectual effort. But look at the actual sculpture. The Thinker sits with his chin resting on the back of his relaxed hand, not a clenched fist against his forehead. His hand is open, fingers naturally positioned, supporting his chin rather than pressed against his head. The difference is significant. A clenched fist suggests tension, struggle, the strain of thinking. An open hand supporting the chin suggests calm contemplation, patience, philosophical reflection. These are completely different emotional and physical states. When people encounter this discrepancy, the reaction is often visceral disbelief. Amateur artists who've drawn this sculpture from memory describe sketching the fist-to-forehead pose. Art students recall studying the symbolism of the clenched fist. Museums have reported visitors insisting the sculpture has been replaced with a different version. The widespread nature of this false memory is particularly puzzling because The Thinker has been extensively reproduced and photographed since its creation. There are multiple bronze casts in museums worldwide, all showing the same open-hand pose. 11. Chartreuse color, confusion. Quick, what color is chartreuse? If you said reddish purple or magenta, you're not alone. That's exactly what I would have said with complete confidence. I remember learning the color name in art class, seeing it on color wheels, and specifically associating it with that burgundy purple-red family. Many interior designers, artists, and people who work with color professionally share this memory. They recall using chartreuse to describe deep reds and purples, recommending it in the color schemes, and having clients request this specific shade. But chartreuse isn't red or purple. It's a yellow-green color, specifically a pale greenish yellow. It's been defined this way since the color was named after the French liqueur, chartreuse, in the early 1900s. The liqueur is green, the color is green, and it's always been green. When I first learned this, I refused to believe it. I looked it up in multiple sources, checked old dictionaries, searched through vintage color charts. All confirmed the same thing. chartreuse is yellow-green. Yet the number of people who remember chartreuse being reddish-purple is staggering. What makes this particularly fascinating is that these aren't people who caught a glimpse of the color once. These are professionals who worked with color theory, who mixed paints, who specified colors in design work. The false memory is so pervasive that some educational systems and interior design books have been questioned for possibly contributing to the confusion. The Volkswagen logo gap. Here's one that shook the automotive world. The Volkswagen logo, that simple iconic combination of V and W that's adorned millions of cars since 1937. Most people remember it as a solid design, the V sitting directly on top of the W with no separation. Clean, unified, cohesive. But look at the actual logo, past and present. There's a gap. A horizontal line separates the V from the W, and there always has been. This isn't a new design change. It's been part of the logo since the beginning. Yet car enthusiasts, Volkswagen owners, mechanics who've worked on these vehicles for decades, they remember a solid logo. I owned a VW Beetle for years. I washed that car every weekend, polished the hood emblem, looked at that logo thousands of times. In my memory, it's solid, no gap. But photographs of my own car show the gap clearly. People have gone into their garages, looked at their Volkswagens, and been shocked to see a gap they swear wasn't there before. Some have even claimed to have noticed the logo change suddenly, one day solid, the next day separated. Online forums exploded with people sharing their disbelief. The counter-argument is that, at certain angles or in certain lighting, the gap isn't visible, creating the illusion of a solid logo. But this doesn't account for people who examined the logo up close, who studied it carefully for decades. 13. Mona Lisa's expression. Leonardo da Vinci's. Mona Lisa has captivated viewers for centuries with her enigmatic smile, or has she? A growing number of people report that the Mona Lisa's expression has changed. Some remember her having a more subtle, barely there smile, or even a neutral expression that could hardly be called a smile at all. They recall art historians and teachers specifically emphasizing the subtlety of her expression, the debate over whether she was actually smiling or maintaining a neutral face. But when you look at the painting now, her smile is more pronounced than many remember. It's still enigmatic, but it's definitely there, more obvious, more present. What makes this phenomenon particularly intriguing is that the Mona Lisa's smile has been the subject of intense study and debate for hundreds of years. Art historians have written thousands of pages analyzing her expression. Some researchers attribute the confusion to the sfumato technique Leonardo used, which creates soft, almost imperceptible transitions between colors and tones. The smile can appear to change depending on which part of the painting you focus on. Looking directly at her mouth shows less of a smile than looking at her eyes. Yet, people who've studied this painting extensively, who've seen it in person multiple times, report that something about her expression seems different than they remember. The debate continues to this day. 14. The Sinbad Genie movie, Shazam. This one is perhaps the most fascinating Mandela Effect of all, because it involves an entire movie that apparently never existed. In the 1990s, comedian Sinbad starred in a movie called Shazam, where he played a genie who helped two children. I remember this movie clearly. I remember the VHS cover, Sinbad in genie attire, probably with his arms crossed, vibrant colors, the title Shazam in stylized letters. I remember scenes from the movie, Sinbad appearing from a lamp, granting wishes that went comically wrong, the kids learning important lessons. Thousands upon thousands of people share this exact memory. They remember renting it from Blockbuster. They remember watching it at sleepovers. They remember specific scenes, plot points, and even lines of dialogue. But Shazam doesn't exist. Sinbad has never played a genie in any movie. There's no record of this film ever being produced. No VHS copies, no promotional materials, nothing. The internet has been scoured extensively and no evidence has emerged. Sinbad himself has repeatedly stated he never made such a movie, even posting humorous denials on social media. The most common explanation is that people are confusing this with Kazam, a 1996 movie starring Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. But here's the problem. Many people who remember Shazam also remember Kazam as a separate, different movie. They remember both existing, comparing them, preferring one over the other. 15. Sex and the City title. One of HBO's most successful series, running from 1998 to 2004, was called Sex and the City, right? That's certainly how everyone refers to it. That's how I've always known it. The title makes perfect sense. It's about sex and relationships in New York City. Except many people remember it being called Sex in the City, not and in. They specifically remember the word in appearing in the title sequence, on promotional materials, and in TV guide listings. Some recall debates about the title's meaning. Was it about sex happening in the city, or sex being an integral part of city life? This seemed like an obvious misremembering until the sheer number of people reporting this alternative memory came to light. We're talking about a show that dominated pop culture for years, that people watched religiously, that appeared on countless magazine covers and billboards. The title was everywhere, yet thousands of people insist it was Sex in the City. What's particularly strange is that many of these people own DVDs of the series, merchandise, or have written about the show, and they all show Sex in the City. Some report a disorienting experience of looking at their own collection and feeling certain it used to say something different. The in versus and distinction isn't trivial either. It creates a grammatically different phrase with a subtly different implications. Language-conscious viewers and writers who pay attention to such details are among those reporting this discrepancy. 16. Cheez-It versus Cheez-Its. Here's a snack food mystery that's surprisingly contentious. The popular cheese crackers, are they called Cheez-It or Cheez-Its? I would have bet money that the box said Cheez-Its plural, and I know exactly why, because there are multiple crackers in the box. It's logical. You don't buy one cracker, you buy a box of crackers, hence Cheez-Its. This is what countless people remember, and they're shocked to discover the official name is Cheez-It singular. The box has always read Cheez-It without an S, treating the name as a singular brand rather than a plural product description. Go look in your pantry right now if you don't believe me. This anomaly is particularly interesting because it involves a product that people interact with regularly, sometimes daily. Families buy these crackers for decades. People read the box while eating, write Cheez-Its on grocery lists, and ask specifically for them at stores. Yet the memory of an S at the end persists. What complicates this further is that in casual conversation, people naturally pluralize the name. I'm eating Cheez-Its. So there's an argument that people simply assume the conversational plural was the official name, but many people insist they have specific visual memories of seeing Cheez-Its with an S on the packaging. Some have even claimed to remember both versions existing, perhaps different package sizes or regional variations. But the company confirms it's always been Cheez-It singular. 17. Fruit Loops color pattern. Breakfast cereal shouldn't be controversial, but here we are. The Kellogg's Fruit Loops mascot, Toucan Sam, has a distinctive beak. What colors is it? Most people, including myself, remember a rainbow pattern: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. Basically, the full color spectrum across his beak. This made perfect sense because the cereal pieces themselves come in multiple colors, and the rainbow beak matched that multicolor theme. I have vivid memories of this rainbow beak from countless cereal boxes throughout my childhood. But Toucan Sam's beak has only ever been colored in 3 shades: pink or red, orange, and yellow. That's it. No green, no blue, no purple. Just a 3-color gradient from pink to yellow. Every vintage commercial, every old cereal box from the 1960s onward, every piece of promotional material, all show the same 3-color beak. Yet people are adamant about remembering more colors. What makes this particularly puzzling is that Fruit Loops are famously colorful, with the cereal pieces coming in red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So it seems natural that Toucan Sam's beak would reflect that rainbow, but it doesn't and never has. Some skeptics suggest people are simply projecting the cereal's colors onto their memory of the mascot. But that doesn't explain why so many people have specific, detailed memories of seeing all 6 colors on the beak, or why this false memory is so consistent across different age groups. 18. Curious George's missing tail. Growing up, I loved Curious George books. That mischievous little monkey got into all sorts of trouble, his tail often playing a role in his adventures. He'd hang from it, use it for balance, get it caught in doors. Except Curious George doesn't have a tail. He's never had a tail. Not in the original books by H.A. and Margaret Ray, not in any of the television adaptations, not in any official merchandise. Curious George is technically depicted as a chimpanzee or a very humanoid ape, hence no tail. When I discovered this, I felt like reality shifted beneath my feet. I have vivid memories of illustrations showing his tail. I remember it being brown, slightly curved, and often in motion to convey his energetic personality. Thousands of others share identical memories. Parents recall reading stories where the tail was part of the plot. Teachers remember using Curious George to teach children about monkeys and their prehensile tails. Artists have described drawing Curious George with his tail in elementary school, yet every piece of physical evidence, every book, every episode, every official image, shows George without a tail. The counter-argument is that people are simply confusing Curious George with other cartoon monkeys, but many people experiencing this phenomenon aren't familiar with those characters, or they specifically remember contrasting Curious George's tail with other monkey characters. The memory is too specific and too widespread to dismiss easily. 19. Pikachu's black tail tip. Pokémon became a global phenomenon in the late 1990s, and Pikachu is arguably the most recognizable character from the franchise. When you think of Pikachu's tail, what do you see? Many people, myself included, clearly remember Pikachu's tail having a black tip at the end. It made aesthetic sense. The character has black-tipped ears, so having a black-tipped tail created visual symmetry. I remember drawing Pikachu as a kid, carefully adding that black tip to make sure I got it right. But Pikachu's tail has never had a black tip. It's entirely yellow, always has been. Every official Pokémon card, video game sprite, anime episode, and piece of merchandise shows a completely yellow tail. There's no black anywhere on Pikachu's tail. When this revelation hit the internet, Pokémon fans worldwide were stunned. People who grew up with the franchise, who collected cards, who played the games religiously, they all remembered the black tip. Some even described buying Pikachu merchandise specifically because the tail design was cute. Artists shared their childhood drawings showing the black-tipped tail. The memory is so pervasive that when researchers studied visual Mandela effects, Pikachu's tail was one of the most commonly misremembered images. The false memory is consistent across cultures and age groups, suggesting something deeper than simple confusion about a cartoon character's design. 20. Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer. You know the jingle. My Bologna has a first name. It's Oscar. But how do you spell the last name? If you confidently answered Meyer with an EY, you're experiencing this Mandela effect. The brand name is actually Oscar Mayer, spelled with an AY, not EY. This shocks people because the EY spelling seems more common for the Meyer surname. Many people remember singing the jingle and specifically spelling out Meyer. They recall looking at the packaging, writing it on grocery lists, and seeing advertisements with that spelling. But every piece of Oscar Mayer packaging, past and present, shows Mayer with an A. The company was founded in 1883 by Oscar F. Mayer, whose name was spelled with an A, and it's remained consistent throughout the brand's history. What makes this particularly confusing is that Meyer is indeed a common spelling for that surname, perhaps more common than Mayer in general usage. So, when people see or hear the name, their brains may automatically fill in the more familiar spelling, but that doesn't explain why so many people have specific visual memories of seeing Meyer on the packaging, or why they remember the jingle's spelling song differently. Some people even claim to remember debating with friends or family about the correct spelling, only to find their memories don't align with current reality. 21. Hello, Clarice, in Silence of the Lambs. In one of cinema's most chilling moments, Hannibal Lecter first meets Clarice Starling in his cell. Everyone remembers his greeting. Hello, Clarice, delivered with that unsettling calm that made Anthony Hopkins' performance legendary. The phrase became iconic, referenced in countless parodies, memes, and pop culture callbacks. There's just one problem. Hannibal Lecter never says, hello, Clarice, in The Silence of the Lambs. Not once. When Clarice approaches his cell, Lecter simply says, good morning. That's it. No, hello, Clarice. The line doesn't exist in the film. This one baffles me completely because hello, Clarice and good morning sound nothing alike. How did such a widespread false memory take hold? When you watch the scene, there's no ambiguity. Hopkins clearly says good morning. Yet the hello, Clarice quote has become synonymous with the character. People use it in Anthony Hopkins impersonations. It appears on merchandise. Film critics have referenced it in reviews. The false quote has essentially become more famous than what was actually said. Some theorize that the line appears in the book by Thomas Harris, but even that's not quite right. The book also has different dialogue. The persistence of this false memory, despite being so easily verifiable by watching the film, is one of the strangest aspects of this phenomenon. 22. We Are the Champions ending. Queen's anthem, We Are the Champions, ends with one of rock's most triumphant moments, right? Freddie Mercury belts out, We are the champions of the world. And the song concludes on that powerful note. Except, that's not how the song ends. In the original 1977 studio recording, Freddie sings, "We are the champions." And then the music trails off without the "of the world" finale. The phrase "of the world" appears earlier in the song, but not at the very end. When people learn this, they refuse to believe it. They remember singing along to "Of the World" at sporting events, concerts, and in their cars. They remember that triumphant final phrase being the exclamation point on the entire anthem. I had to listen to the song multiple times to convince myself. Even now, knowing the truth, my brain wants to fill in those missing words at the end. What makes this particularly confusing is that in live performances, Freddie Mercury often did sing "of the world" at the end, changing the arrangement from the studio version. So, people who saw Queen perform live or watched concert footage may have legitimate memories of hearing that ending. But the studio recording that plays on the radio and streaming services has never ended that way. Yet, the collective memory persists so strongly that many people feel genuinely shocked when they listen to the song with this knowledge in mind. 23. Britney Spears, "Baby One More Time" headset. In the year 2000, Britney Spears released the music video for "Baby One More Time," one of the most iconic pop videos of all time. She's dressed in a schoolgirl outfit, dancing through hallways with her signature moves. Most people remember her wearing a microphone headset during the video, the kind performers wear during live shows. The image is so clear in my memory, Britney singing and dancing with that headset, securely positioned by her mouth. Even the Britney Spears doll released for this era came with a microphone headset accessory. But if you watch the actual music video right now, Britney doesn't wear a headset at any point, not once. She's singing without any visible microphone throughout the entire video. When this was pointed out online, people were bewildered. How could such a specific accessory be so universally misremembered? The explanation seems to be that Britney became famous for performing this song live with a headset microphone, and those live performance images merged with memories of the music video in people's minds. But that doesn't account for people who specifically remember watching the video multiple times and seeing the headset. Some even describe the color and style of the headset they remember her wearing. The fact that merchandise included a headset only reinforces the false memory, creating a feedback loop of misremembering. 24. Wizard of Oz. "We're not in Kansas anymore." Dorothy's realization upon arriving in Oz has become one of the most quoted lines in film history. Everyone knows it. "Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." It's the perfect summation of finding yourself in a strange new world, which is why it's referenced so often in other movies, TV shows, and everyday conversation. But that's not quite what Dorothy says in the 1939 film. The actual line is, "Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore." Not, "I don't think," but "I've a feeling." The difference might seem minor, but it fundamentally changes the sentence structure and Dorothy's certainty level. "I don't think" expresses doubt or disbelief. "I have a feeling" expresses intuition or realization. When you listen to Judy Garland deliver the line, she clearly says, "I have a feeling," yet the misquote has become so entrenched in popular culture that it's essentially replaced the original. This happens with many famous movie quotes, where the commonly repeated version differs from the actual dialogue. But what makes this a Mandela effect, rather than just a common misquote, is that so many people have specific memories of hearing "I don't think" when watching the film, not just when hearing others quote it. They remember Dorothy's exact phrasing matching the popular version, despite the film showing otherwise. 25. C-3PO's silver leg. Star Wars fans pride themselves on knowing every detail of the original trilogy. So, when it comes to C-3PO's appearance, most people describe him as entirely gold from head to toe. That shiny golden protocol droid. It's his defining characteristic. I've watched Star Wars countless times, and in my memory, C-3PO is uniformly gold. But here's the twist. C-3PO has never been entirely gold. He's always had one silver leg. Specifically, his right leg from the knee down is silver, not gold. In every appearance across the original trilogy, this silver leg is present. When this fact emerged online, Star Wars fans collectively lost their minds. These aren't casual viewers. These are people who've watched these films dozens, maybe hundreds of times. People who own action figures, posters, and memorabilia. Yet somehow this silver leg went unnoticed or misremembered by millions. When you go back and watch the films with this knowledge, the silver leg is clearly visible in numerous scenes. It's not hidden or subtle, it's right there. Some argue it's harder to spot in certain lighting conditions or camera angles, But that doesn't explain the universal nature of this misremembering. What makes this particularly fascinating is that even some official Star Wars merchandise has depicted C-3PO as entirely gold, reinforcing the false memory. The silver leg seems to exist in a blind spot of collective memory, visible yet somehow invisible to most viewers until suddenly it isn't. Drop a comment and let me know which ones shocked you the most.